one of the things they talk about is like people save up for retirement, and then it's like, let's say, somebody gets to 75 years old, and then they're going to retire, and then when they go enjoy life, they die, and then the money goes to their kids. But it's like, well, that's really nice that you saved up all this money, but you were too old to do the things that you really wanted to do, right? So can you use some of that money when your earning years are still there so
Yeah.
that you can go do things that are maybe a little bit more adventurous, maybe a little bit more exciting, maybe your knees haven't given out so you can go, take on that ski hill that you've wanted to take on, right? Instead of so there's that. But then what I thought was the most effective is like I think about us and I think about our parents, and it says that's great that you pass money to your kids when you die, but like what if your kids could have used that a lot more effectively when they were 18 or 20 and trying to buy their own house versus like, oh, that's great. I have this chunk of change now when I'm 40 and established and I have
Yeah.
kids, right? Like it's less impactful on the trajectory of their life. And so it makes you kind of rethink some of that stuff of like, what's my age? What's my financial situation? What's my earning capacity? Where can I actually make the greatest impact of life? And I just thought it was really interesting because I think it's stuff Andy Frisella always says this, which I appreciate, which is like everybody kind of knows what to do, right? It's like
Yeah.
you get this refresher of information of, hey, I should do these things, but nobody
Yeah.
does it. And it just laid out the roadmap. And so when I read it, I was like, wow, we really need to bring these principles into habitual growth because I think it's a huge capacity of how we can drastically impact people's lives because again it's that mental transformation, it's people know what to do, but how do you actually apply it to your life?
Yeah. I love it. I'm like so in this zone right now and I think we know what to do, but we're so in a hurry to do the next thing. That's kind of where I've landed in this year, which is such a bizarre because I started the year with my words being present and disciplined. And I completely thought those words were going to be something different,
Mhm.
like double down, be extra tough. And what I've found, what's been coming to me through books that are recommended or just people that I've met in conversations is be disciplined about being present, be
Mhm.
disciplined about being intentional, be disciplined about building time to be and have relationships
Yeah.
not only with other people but with yourself and for me with my relationship with God. And it's been crazy just the difference that mentality has brought. And I think you're right. I think habitual growth is perfect for that because we're not a to-do list. We're not a just do one more thing. We're be intentional with your time. Is this how you want to spend your days, how you want to spend your life? And yes, making money and growing financially is a component of being able to spend your time in the ways that you want to spend it. I'm also growing increasingly conscious of how I spend my time and what that means to somebody else in terms of a relationship. Because
Mhm.
the last thing that I want at the end of my life at 104 years old, yeah,
Okay. Wow. There you go. Like it.
is I was too busy when my kids were home, or I was too busy when my spouse and I were at an active age to have taken advantage of some of the things that I could have
Yeah.
done. Yeah, and so I'm trying to rethink and repurpose and figure out what that looks like from here, so that I don't have that regret, so that I still am focused on the goals that I ultimately want to have personally, professionally, but I don't lose sight of being present and creating memories that are going to mean something, that are going to mean something far more than just passing on X amount of dollars when I pass away.
Yeah. No, 100%. I mean, and it's a perfect segue into what you wanted to talk about anyway. Thank you. Vision. And I think, but that's the same thing, I would share from mine and Bree's perspective, right? We read the book, she's going through it right now, and it's kind of the same thing. It's just our vision for what we want to get has shifted, and we've now taken a more practical and tactical approach to, hey, let's actually lay out the foundation of our lives. It's great to be like, we want to take all these trips and, we want to go live abroad for a year and we
Yeah.
want to, take our kids with us and experience different cultures or whatever it is, whatever that is for your own life. But a lot of people just say that, and then there's never an action of, hey, these are the things I need to have in place to make that happen, right? It's less about how is this going to impact my retirement when I'm 65, but it's like you only have so much time to be able to do this, like cherishing those young years with your kids, right? Your vision for yourself when you're 20 versus 30 versus 40 versus
Yeah.
50 is going to constantly change, but it's also going to shift as you become more mature, more experienced. Maybe you have a professional relationship that you want to see your career grow versus growing a family. Maybe you need to start with a promotion or get a house or what. So
Yeah.
your vision is always going to change, but it's how do you assess what has to be worked on to achieve your overall goal while that is happening simultaneously.
Yeah. One of the things that I've learned in all of my travels this year, so here's the blessing in all the chaos. One of the lessons that I've learned is to be curious about people. Um, and that comes from being present, that comes from being intentional, yes, of course. But I think it's really important to be curious about people and new experiences and new ways of doing things, because all of those actually inform how your vision may change. And just random example, I don't know if you and I have ever talked about it, but this woman that I've been on some trips with now is older. She's about 20 years older than I am. And we were on a trip and she was like, "Where are you going?" And I was like, "Well, I'm going back to my hotel room. I got to catch up on emails and, finish the slide deck and da da da." And she was like, "You ever heard of boondoggling?" And I was like, "A what?" And she was like, "I started this when I started traveling." She's like, "Boondoggling is like doing something for fun on a trip." And so every trip she takes, she picks one thing she wants to do based on, location. And it could be enjoying a great barbecue meal because she's in Texas, or, going to see the manatees because she's in Florida. But she says, I pick one thing
Mm-hmm.
that breaks me away from just being focused on only work and allows me to live life and fill my bucket in other ways. And I loved that. And I've had other conversations with people during my travels, but I think that curiosity to learn about things that people are doing that you might not have visibility to goes into informing your own vision of things that you might want to pour into and be more intentional about.
Yeah. No, 100%. And there's a lot of different ways we could take that.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
listen to that and I think it's prioritizing how you present yourself, right? I think
Yeah.
about, do people have the confidence enough to be able to share that? Because there's a lot of people that just don't simply feel empowered enough to be able to say, I'm going to go do things that are not relevant to work on a work trip. And therefore, right, I'm going to get in trouble for it, right? But that
Yeah.
could just be a conversation, right? Maybe you show up better. It could be how you frame and storytell. But at the end of the day, it really is about this vision for yourself. Like if you're going to be the best person for you and you're going to be open to new experiences and you're going to have a willingness to share and learn from other people, that's a perfect example of saying, these are the things that are important to me. I may never get to this place again. I never may be on this trip again, or to be able to have this conversation. So it is a framing and a perspective change while simultaneously saying, I know that I'm here for this vision for work and I need to present myself in the best way possible to create the most value for the people I'm speaking to. How do I do that? How do I want to show up? I don't want to get burned out because I'm going from this event to this dinner to this after party to this thing, right? You sent me that meme where the person was just like walking in and collapsing on their bed because they had 20 minutes between. We've all been there, right? And
We've
that's
all
not
been there.
fun. But if you could break that up by taking a nice walk on a bay or on a beach or go see some manatees or whatever it is, and that reshifts your mind, that's a different way of thinking about achieving that overall vision and intent of the trip.
Yeah. And I think you, so I also think about how I add value, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
we're not meant to be on this earth just to be self-serving and that's it. So what am I bringing to the table to influence, impact, lead, provide inspiration to other people? And I do not think that killing myself day after day and working 16 hours a day is overly inspiring to anybody.
Yeah.
What is inspiring is hard work, discipline, incorporating fun, bringing new experiences to the table so I can have conversations in a different way, finding relationships that lead to another relationship. And that's what I took out of it. And I know it's easy for people, especially in the corporate world, to go, and especially if you travel or you're in the office constantly, is there's this pressure, whether it's self-perceived or true, of I have to be 100% work focused at all the time, and that's all there is. And I don't think that has to be true. I think there's a balance that you can find because it makes you a better employee. It makes you a more
Yeah.
interesting human. It makes you a more productive contributor, and it adds value all around, both in the workplace and outside of it.
Yeah. No, 100%. And I think even flipping that around, I think that is the perspective of an employee working for an environment. But I mean, if you're a manager, right, you have a team of employees, you don't want them to be burned up. You don't want people to be tired. You want
No.
them to have their personal time. Like I'm a person when I travel, like I also need my downtime, right? Yeah, it's really fun to go hard and that's okay. And you're around a lot of other people, but it's exhausting, And I think just accepting you need those breaks. You need that mental ability. It's why people that are usually into like physical fitness get out and they have to go to the gym in the morning because that sets their mind, that establishes them in the right way. And if you plan that ahead of time, you have the conversations, right? You want your team to show up in that same capacity as well.
Yeah. Um, this is a little bit of a tangent, but kind of on the same path. Because I've also observed it and I felt it, and it was probably more so before I started traveling and having lots of conversations with random people. But part of the Live Hard program that Andy Frisella has, I believe there's a component in there where you have to go out and talk to one random person
Mhm.
um, every single day. And I think that's a great skill to build because it actually feeds into all these things that we're talking about. And it is daunting, and it's taken me a long time to be able to go up to a random person and start a conversation. um, you don't know how it's going to be received. You don't know, are they going to look at you like you have three horns on your head? Sometimes yes. It's the answer to that. Yes, it is. um, but part of that goes back to being curious about other people and trying to provide value, and also to build your own experience and um, what you bring to the table, and build relationships. And so I think if people take something away, part of creating and building a long-term vision comes through interactions with other people. And a component of that is be open and willing to have random conversations
Yeah.
with strangers.
Yeah.
Um, I will look for someone at the gym almost every day and try and at least have a 30-second something. It could be someone's wearing a first form shirt. It could be a guy that looks like he's training for something, and I'm just going to say, hey, you've been working really hard, tell me about what you're doing. I mean, it's wild, like,
Yeah.
but the more you do it, the more you build that muscle, the less weird it gets.
Yeah.
And that I've actually learned so much from other people that has made my life more fulfilling, and then allowed me to give back through things we're working on in habitual growth, and inviting people to challenges, or reconnecting in different ways, and learning how to live intentionally. So I just wanted to bring that in because I think that skill goes by the wayside because a lot of people aren't comfortable, but it actually feeds into everything that we've been talking about.
Yeah. No, I agree. And I'm going to leave that there because I think you did a good job of describing it. I'm not sure if we actually addressed the original topic you wanted to discuss today. So it sounded like there was an example that you wanted to provide that maybe we could parlay this conversation into that.
Yeah, let's table that because I think it probably warrants more than just a couple of minutes. But I want to talk about next time what happens when you lose your vision, or your vision has to change because of something, a life circumstance, let's say. And a lot of people get lost and they never reclaim a vision or figure out where
Mhm.
they're going. And so I think that will hit home for a lot of people. I think, the last couple of years have been difficult. So let's chat about that next week.
Sounds good. All right, we'll talk
Almost went
soon.
right into it.
Hey, perfect. I love it.